Right, good morning and welcome to Elevenses. I seem to be a bit stuttery again. Let's hope it's not going to be a nuisance, today's show. Um, Once again, got a packed show for you. We have a story about a learner who finally passed their theory test after 75 attempts. Youths on motorcycles have disrupted a Remembrance Sunday parade. There's a temporary 10-mile-per-hour speed limit on a road in Islington, and predictably, it's come under fire. Google Maps, they are upgrading the way the maps work. They are feeding in the camera data to improve driver directions. And another upgrade from Google to Chrome this time means that you'll be able to store your passport, driving license, and vehicle data all on your phone. And of course, that prompts security fears. Sadly, a promising Brazilian footballer has been killed in a bike crash rather, with his family's own cow. A Maltese biker has managed to collide with a stationary law enforcement bike. And in Vietnam, a rider got a fine for carrying 4 passengers and failing to wear helmets. We'll have a quick look at some new motorcycles. New Flying Flea S3 electric bike. Zero, they are teasing a new sort of lightweight Lompico, it's called. The 1000cc sports tourer from Honda, so it kind of relaunches that class after some years in doldrums. I've also got to look at an Italjet scooter as well, which I think you'll find interesting. It's not in the list of things on the show, but I've added it at the last minute. And then in depth today, we'll have a look at the problem of U-turns in queues and why it's easy to blame the driver. And yes, the driver should be careful, but we also have to be careful ourselves. Okay, so stay with me. Grab yourselves a brew, biscuit, sit down in your comfy chair, and stay tuned to me for the next 40 odd minutes as I run through the rest of the show. Right, okay. Now, the first thing I just want to start with, you might have noticed a new music theme this morning. There is a reason for that. Unfortunately, the old music, I suddenly was served with a copyright strike. Now, I've been using that theme tune for 5 years. I rather liked it as it happens, but it seems the composer of that piece of music changed his terms. So I've had to change the music. The first I knew about the strike was on Spotify, by the way, not on YouTube. The podcast actually got taken down. I didn't realize that until I actually logged in to put the next one up and discovered that there was a message saying that a couple of podcasts had actually gone missing. So that's why they are not there. If you do enjoy the show, I will hopefully get round to putting those back up. I quite like the new theme. Hopefully you do too. Anyway, hopefully it won't need to be changed for another 5 years. Now, one other piece of news this morning. It's about this time last year that I launched a new ebook called Crash Scene Motorcycle. That was a series of sort of anecdotes, observations, a look at the research, all connected by the theme of motorcycle crashes. Now, I've just finished what I hope is the final read through of the first of 3 companion pieces. And this is called Crash Scene Motorcycle. Start again. This is called Crash Scene Junction. So it's a companion to Crash Scene Motorcycle. And Crash Scene Junction looks at this very specific problem. 1 in 3 of the sort of standard motorcycle crashes happens at intersections. The book's short, less than 60 pages. It will be inexpensive, as I do want people to actually buy it and read it. It will be available first as an instant download from my coffee store, hopefully this evening, maybe by tomorrow morning. And then there's a paperback. That does take a little longer to set up. But again, they will be cheap. And there are 2 further books in the works as well to look at the other 2 standard crashes, cornering and overtaking. Hopefully, first of those will be out by Christmas. The second of those 2 early next year. And then you lot really will have no reason for crashing, will you? Right, okay. On with the weather forecast for today. And we have a period of unsettled weather. Why is my picture not moving? Oh, for heaven's sakes. Right, sorry about this. I'm just trying to get the graphics working again. It was all set up and it was all working perfectly, and suddenly it's stopped. Anyway, let's get that out the way. Let's get the graphic back up. This is why I need a producer. Right, there we go. Hopefully that will be on screen any moment. There it is. So we're in a period of particularly unsettled weather at the moment. There's basically a fight between cold polar air coming south and some remarkably warm and very moist tropical air coming north. So the result is battleground in the middle, and there are weather warnings out for wind and rain. These are in place across the southwest, and there's also a weather warning for rain across South Wales today. So do watch out for flooding if you're out. There are likely to be more weather warnings as the week goes on, incidentally. So keep an eye on the forecast if you are planning on riding anywhere. Now, right now, it's wet across northern Scotland. It will be turning colder later with this strong northerly wind, which will be bringing showers down as far as the south of Scotland and Northern Ireland later in the day. Now, here in the south, it's breezier. It's mild, it's cloudy at the moment, but the band of rain that is moving northwards and is heavy across the sort of western parts, it'll clear away. And the far southeast should see some pleasant sunshine as this band of rain moves away. And in between, in northern England, you should be lucky and you should get some sunny spells between. The clouds should stay dry there. Now, Thursday, the picture is equally complicated. There's colder air again across the far north, and that will bring in a mix of sunny spells and showers. The band of rain moved north overnight, and this will now straddle Northern Ireland, southern Scotland, and northeast England, but it should fizzle out as the day goes on. Now, a brighter belt will lie over much of Wales and the Midlands, but the south and southeast of England is likely to see some cloud and some patchy rain. It'll be mild in the south at 16 degrees, cold in the far north with temperatures dropping into single figures. It will be chilly overnight, so watch out some frost up there on Friday morning. Now, Friday does see another band of wet and windy weather. This will push northwards from the south on as the day goes on, but it should stay mostly dry, brighter and colder in the north. Saturday looks widely dry and bright, but there'll be low cloud and some patchy rain lingering across Wales and central and southern England. So a real mixed bag. Do keep an eye on your local forecast so that you know what's going on. Right, and so on with some news. Now, the first story is that a learner driver has managed to pass their theory test on the 75th attempt. They apparently spent more than £1,700 in fees. Now, this information was obtained by the AA driving school via a Freedom of Information request. And they also found another learner has so far taken 128 tests without passing. So this has cost them nearly £3,000 in fees. Each test at the moment costs £23. Now, the AA says it's easy to underestimate how much knowledge is needed to pass. Their managing director, Emma Bush, also, she says revision is the key, but she says also life can get in the way, adding that high numbers are the exception, not the rule. Now, the theory test assesses knowledge, obviously understanding of road rules and safe driving practices. It uses multi-choice questions and also the ability to identify hazards via the hazard perception videos. And I know that most people will think that if you can't pass the theory test, you simply shouldn't be driving on the roads. But it's not simply knowledge of driving that counts here. The multi-choice question format and the language that the test uses, it tends to be rather legal or technical phrasing. It uses expressions like must or must not, or unless stated otherwise. And these aren't phrases that we tend to use in everyday conversation, let alone if you're speaking English as a second language. And then there's nuance. Words like should and must often trip people up. Even experienced riders often get should and must confused. And then there are learning difficulties. Dyslexia is a good example. They make reading these timed questions more difficult. It's been suggested that color perception, visual processing issues could also make it more difficult for people to process those videos than actual real life hazards. And tests like these do create significant stress. And, it's then easy to misread a question. It's sometimes difficult under stressful conditions to actually recall what you know. Now, I know this only too well from my days as a direct access instructor, that we would get somebody in on a training course. They would confidently handle the roads while they were on two wheels because they had a full driving license. And then they went away, did their theory test and promptly failed it. And experienced drivers can actually second guess answers too. We'd regularly have people who'd failed several theory tests but were perfectly fit to ride on the road. Anyway, pass rates for the theory test, they're currently at 44.9% and 48.7% for the practical tests. So not too much difference between them. Right, okay, and so on with the first of today's news stories. Now, this is about a pair of youths who disrupted a Remembrance Sunday parade on these sort of off-road mini-moto scooter things. The police in Wigan described the incident as reckless behaviour. They revealed that the two machines were later seized after the riders involved pulled out into the oncoming path of the parade, where hundreds of people had gathered. This was in the centre of Hindley to observe the annual parade and the subsequent church service. Greater Manchester Police later confirmed no arrests were made and there were no reports of any injuries. Now, down here in London, a 10-mile-per-hour temporary speed limit has come under fire in Islington. The limit is a 6-month measure. It's designed to protect workers while the council installs a traffic filter, trees, planters, and some what they call rain gardens to improve the sort of safety and the look of the area while the traffic runs through narrowed lanes. Now, Councillor Rowena Champion, she oversees environment, air quality and transport in the council. She says the works are in place to offer local residents greener, safer and more pleasant streets, and that these works will achieve that. Now, not surprisingly, the council has been attacked for the lowered limit by the usual suspects. For example, Reform Howard Cox called it the peak of insanity. Cox is already a fervent anti-20 campaigner, arguing that even 20-mile-per-hour zones are inappropriate because they cause drivers to focus on their speedometers, and it doesn't bring any safety or emissions benefits, both claims of which have been proven incorrect, incidentally. And he says that 10 miles per hour will be impossible to police with no vehicle, not even a bicycle, apparently, unable to stay under that limit. So why has the speed limit been dropped? Well, it's simple enough. The council says we're doing everything we can to minimise disruption. So let's have a look at the actual map, and you can see the St John roadworks in the green zone here, and it's this disruption that is the problem. Local roads where I live have been disrupted, getting on, must be 18 months now at least, by repeated road closures as they replace water mains all over the area. Now, some sections get totally closed, even though they're only protecting a trench on one side of the road. Other sections get totally closed because they're protecting a hole. Often they have no workers there for days on end. Others are controlled by temporary lights. As a result, what's happened, of course, is drivers use cut-throughs onto residential roads, and it just adds to the overall congestion around the area. So have a look at the street map there, which shows you how extensive the works are. I measure that at approximately 150 meters long. So I'll leave it to you to work out just how long a delay you're going to suffer if you drive 150 meters at 10 miles per hour rather than at 20. Frankly, to me, keeping that section of road open seems like a much better idea. Right, quick break while I have a sip of tea. As always, can I ask you to take a moment to like and subscribe to this show if you've not already done so. Every click helps other motorcyclists discover my content, or simply share the word the old-fashioned way by telling your riding buddies about Elevenses they can watch on catch-up. Remember, my latest riding skills articles are always free, and you can get all the links delivered weekly to your email inbox by subscribing to my newsletter at survivalskills.substack.com. Or you can use this QR code to jump straight to it, when the show's over of course. No spam, and if you don't like the content, unsubscribe at any time. Right, okay, so on with the next story then. Well, this is about Google Maps, and their latest upgrade is going to be using the feed from a car's front-facing camera to actually see lane markings and road signs in real time. They will combine what the sensors see with what Google Mapping already has logged for that particular stretch of road. And the idea is to turn Google Maps into a reliable tool to give drivers precise lane change instructions to make exits and turns smoother and less stressful. Now, right now, the feature is actually only available on the Polestar 4, and this has the latest version of Google built in. And this feature will be rolled out in the US and Sweden in the coming months. Now, the first phase is going to feature on the so-called highway maneuvers, so basically motorways and sort of fast dual carriageways, because the lane markings and the exits here are usually clearer, and support for more complex roads will be added later. Well, all I can say to that is good luck trying to spot any road markings on roads here in the UK. Now, another feature that Google have upgraded is their browser Chrome, and this is an enhanced autofill feature. So it can not only store Freudian slip there, store your passwords and your credit card details, but you can now add your driver's license, your passport number, your vehicle ID, and registration plate to the autofill. Now, on the surface, that will sound quite handy, but frankly, this is a hacker's dream. Chrome, they dominate the browser market. It said they have 73% of it. So it makes it a huge target for cyber criminals who want to steal your data for identity theft and fraud. Now, Google says the data is encrypted, permission-based, and only filled in when you choose to do so. But the internet is littered with stories of major data leaks from everyone, from tech giants to government agencies. And if it's on your phone, how secure is your phone? Mostly phones are very easily hacked, I believe. Now, a criminal won't necessarily have, have to work very hard, and then they have not just your access codes that you stored in your password file, but you've got your passport, your driving license. That's a huge chunk of your identity. So maybe typing in those details as you need them, maybe keeping them sort of on old-fashioned paper is actually a good idea after all. Now, moving to Brazil, police say that the aunt and the uncle of a talented young footballer who was killed in a motorcycle crash could face manslaughter charges because they were identified as the owners of the cow that he actually hit on his bike. Anthony Lano, 20 years old he was, riding home from a birthday party when he collided with the animal in the early hours of October the 20th. Now, CCTV footage shows 5 cows crossing the road unfortunately, in the dark, Ilano hit the last one and was thrown from his bike. Now, the police chief, Andre Moreno, he confirmed that the animals had escaped days earlier from their enclosure and that the owners had failed to repair fencing or prevent them from straying into the road. And he said the incident, therefore, is foreseeable negligence. Now, decision on whether or not to pursue manslaughter charges will be down to the prosecutor. And Chief Moreno said that they could be granted a judicial pardon due to their family connection with the victim. He also revealed that Ilano wasn't wearing a helmet and he didn't actually hold a valid license for a motorcycle either. And he added that animal owners need to take care of their livestock and motorcyclists should wear helmets and drive legally to prevent future tragedies. Now, in Malta, a 39-year-old motorcyclist from Floriana was seriously injured on Tuesday afternoon when his Honda motorcycle crashed into a Transport Malta law enforcement BMW, which was apparently stationary on the St. Paul's Bay bypass. The rider was apparently there to assist or to direct the clear up of an oil spill on the road. Now, the Transport Malta enforcement officer wasn't hurt, but big jams formed around the area and the incident is being investigated. Meanwhile, in Vietnam, a video of a motorcyclist went viral last month. This is a snip from it. And as you can see, it landed him very quickly in trouble with the law because it shows him carrying no less than 4 female passengers. There are 4 pairs of legs there. If you look carefully, you can't see the one of the women on the bike, and none of the riders are wearing helmets. Now, police launched an investigation and they quickly identified a 19-year-old from Haiphong City as the rider of the bike. He duly admitted the offence. He said he borrowed the motorcycle from relatives to work as a ride-hailing rider. He was fined 3 million Vietnamese dong. That's about £95 for the offences of carrying too many passengers, riding without a helmet himself, and transporting passengers without helmets. And officials say the case highlights the ongoing road safety battle in Vietnam to actually get motorcyclists to wear helmets. Right, okay. So any questions? No questions today at all. Right, so let's shift to the next section of the show then. We're going to have a look at some motorcycles. But before that, let's just take another very quick break. If you enjoy these shows, why not become a member of my Ko-fi pages? Just follow the QR code and sign up. As a member, get free access to the latest articles and the Survival Skills ebook shop with instant downloads of everything from free mini ebooks to ebook versions of my paperbacks. Become a supporter and you'll open up the archive of over 1,000 articles. If you buy me a monthly cover as a subscriber, there's even more content to enjoy. Right, okay, so what have we got to look at then? Well, we're continuing our look at new products from the EICMA Milan Motorcycle Show. And we've got some more bikes to see, and let's start with a pair of electric bikes. I know not all of you are big fans of electric bikes, but I think they're quite interesting. This one here, this is the Flying Flea S6. Now, this has been developed by the company which is an offshoot of Royal Enfield. The name is Pincham, bike that was parachuted in with during the Second World War, incidentally. Now, it follows the earlier appearance of the retro-styled C6, which was shown off at last year's show. That should be making an appearance in showrooms early next year. Now, this machine, I think it's rather nicer looking actually than the sort of ultra retro thing that came out last year. This is described as a sort of scrambler style, light and nimble motorcycle aimed at city commuting and light off-road riding. It's been developed by 200 plus engineers in the UK and India. It features a high torque electric motor, a magnesium battery case which utilizes air cooling. It has an inverted front fork, gets aluminium spoked wheels, they don't look like. I presume what they mean here is the aluminium rim. And there are slightly odd sizes, I'd say, 19-inch front, 18-inch rear. And even more oddly, there's a chain drive on it. Now, the bike gets a cluster of electronics around its circular touchscreen instrument panel. It gets integrated navigation, it gets an off-road mode, it gets traction control, lean sensitive ABS, which is fairly astonishing on a bike this size. Phone connectivity, of course, and a voice assist button. Now, runs all this on an in-house operating system, which actually requires a Qualcomm Snapdragon processor. Get 4G, Bluetooth, and Wi-Fi. You can manage the bike over the with a smartphone or even a smartwatch, apparently, which gives you diagnostics, charging data, and over-the-air updates. And the S6 comes with an onboard charger. Now, Flying Flea, they have an exclusive manufacturing space within Royal Enfield's facility at Vallam-Vadagal, which obviously is in India. Launch is scheduled for the end of 2026, but of course the missing details that you might have spotted are the ones that actually matter quite a lot. The battery capacity, the motor power, the range of the machine, the weight, the charging time, and of course, price. So let's have a look at another machine then. Now, this one is from Zero. They're not sitting still either, hot in the heels of moving their operational headquarters to the Netherlands and appointing a new Dutch CEO. Last week, I showed you their new Learner Legal electric scooter. This is the new Lompico concept bike, and it's said to be the, quote, start of a new era for electric motorcycles. Now, I've enhanced the photo as much as I can. I'll just zoom in on it to show you, because it was one of those lovely low light photos, as I try to hide as much as detail as possible. Now, not too much is known about the machine, but I can tell you that it does have a sort of fairly modest 8.8 kilowatt hour battery. The motor delivers around 30 kilowatts, 40 horsepower peak. Zero says that when fast charging, it can hit 80% in less than 60 minutes, but there's no word on range. I guess it's likely to be 60, maybe 70 miles in a sort of mixed riding cycle. The chassis is said to be designed for agile handling by using premium suspension and advanced traction management. Now, the machine also debuts Zero's new Cypher 4 operating system, which is said to offer even more features, although they don't tell us what. Now, from what little we can see there, I can't say I'm too taken by the sort of futuristic looks. One of the things that I quite liked about the other Zeros is they look like motorcycles, and I think if you want to attract traditional riders to these bikes, you actually have to make them look like a motorcycle and not like something that it comes from the sort of Star Wars. Zero may, however, have calculated their market are the riders who don't actually ride yet, but may join the two-wheeled fraternity within the next year or two. But there's one overwhelming question which I come back to over and over again with these things. 40 odd horsepower, that's enough to push the bike along easily at highway speeds. It should be at the top 100 miles an hour. So why on earth aren't there any aerodynamics on the bike? Why is it left naked? It's not just for rider comfort on these bikes. Trundling along at 70 on the motorway on a naked is much harder work than it is behind a fairing. But the improved aerodynamics would eke out the range, and that's one of the big objections to these kind of bikes, is that they just don't go far enough on the battery. Right, okay, let me just give you the video link. If you want to go off and watch the teaser, that's the link to it on YouTube. Right, now this is the bike that I mentioned earlier that I didn't actually get time to put into the list of items I was bringing you. Now I do try to avoid focusing on the same mainstream stuff that all the usual outlets do, so I grab things that sort of catch my eye, and this is the Italjet Roadster 400. It's said to be a bold new scooter design with retro cues. The dragster range, you probably know, it's pretty distinctive. It sort of has a sort of aggressive high performance look, but this is a complete change of vision for the company. According to Italjet's social media, the design, quote, pays homage to the classic silhouettes of the past whilst drawing inspiration from jet fighters. So you've got a real mishmash of things going on there. I suppose the steampunk is the closest analogy. The front end obviously looks a bit traditional, sort of Vesper-ish or something like that. And those big intakes just behind the, well, under the rider's seat, those I suppose are the jet engine inspiration. Let's just hope your leg doesn't get sucked into it. Anyway, the Roadster also uses a new dynamic linkage articulated system of steering at the front. As you can see, there's a sort of sort of wishbone affair there, and the single shock mounted just sort of where the rider's legs will go. And the rear swing arm has also been redesigned, and both of the Öhlins shocks are prominently on display. Excuse me. Not a lot else to report for this bike, but it certainly notches the conventional scooter star up a bunch of levels. So let's have a look at a bike which actually harks back probably 15 years, and that's this one. You know, we've had a decade more where adventure bikes have supplanted sport touring machines. If you think back to bikes like the old VFR 800, for example, or even my 600 Hornet with a fairing. But it seems that the sort of adventure touring class is, as you know, is maybe slipping back a little bit, and we're bringing back this sport touring class, which is identifiable mainly by the sort of road wheels, I would say, and less aggressive fairing design. So we've got bikes like the Tiger 660, which have been around for a few years now, that new SV7 GT from Suzuki, and now Honda have launched this one. It's the CB1000 GT. So I would say this is sort of re-establishing the class. Now, it is based on the affordable 1000cc Hornet, just like the retro-styled CB1000F. So they squeezed yet another version of the bike out of what is the long-running CB 1000 Fireblade. It's the 2017 engine, double overhead cam, 16 valve, liquid cooled, inline 4, all through a 6-speed gearbox. But the GT gets a new engine map. It means it's 2 horsepower down on the donor bike. That comes in at 11,000 RPM. Max torque, 75 pound-feet at 8,750. So I'm guessing that they've probably boosted the mid-range a bit. Anyway, there are other big upgrades over the basic Hornet. There's cornering ABS, there's lean sensitive traction control because it gets a 6-axis IMU. There's electronically adjustable shower suspension, which changes the compression and rebound damper settings based on speed, the bike's stance and fork movement. And that brings the bike into line with other machines like Yamaha's Tracer 9 GT Plus, Suzuki's GSX S1000 GX, and I believe the Kawasaki 1000 sort of Grand Tourer thing was the first to bring in active suspension. The GT also gets slightly more trail, slightly longer swinging arm to give it a marginally longer wheelbase, presumably to favour stability. Nissan handled the braking. Wheels are cast aluminium, 120/70/17 up front and a 180/55/17 at the rear, so pretty standard sizes. The bike gets the now usual 5-inch TFT display with Bluetooth. There are 3 display modes, switch gears backlit, and the bike gets keyless ignition, although you will still need apparently to find the physical key to open the tank and remove the seat. Excuse me. It does get self-cancelling indicators, to which I say hurrah. And it gets Honda's ESS emergency stop warning system that flashes both rear indicators as hazard lights when the rider is braking hard. Now, the screen above the half fairing is adjustable, but it is only manual adjustable, so I've saved a bit of money there, into 5 positions. The pegs are also lowered. The seat apparently, though, has gained height over the Hornet, apparently thanks to thicker padding. The tank is unchanged at 21 litre and should give you about 200 miles between refills, so maybe that comfortable seat is a good idea. Detachable panniers, they're included in the price of the bike. There's an optional top case as well. The rack there seems to be fitted ready for it and ready to roll. The bike weighs in at not entirely unreasonable £505. Now, I did mention the Tracer 9 GT and the GSX 1000 GX, and it appears that Honda are aiming to put this bike in at a cheaper price than either of those two bikes, which surprises me because Honda have traditionally been just a wee bit pricier than others. Now, since Suzuki have reborn their baby V-twin in a sort of sport tourer mode, will we perhaps see a fared 650 Hornet return? Okay, and excuse me, I'm losing my voice here. On to the final item today. This is the in-depth section, and this is sort of a warning about the U in the queue. Now, this was a no surprise rhyming reminder that Duncan McKillop came up with a few years ago when we put our heads together to come up with some simple ways to remind riders to avoid some of the more predictable gotchas that catch riders out time and again. This, unfortunately, is related to a crash that occurred last November in East Sussex on the A259 near Hoo. Now, a 19-year-old rider, he was unfortunately seriously injured when a driver made a U-turn straight into his path. The driver, the 40-year-old former chef, Stuart Hutchinson, he was attempting to avoid queuing traffic caused by temporary roadworks. Unfortunately, he turned his Nissan Qashqai straight into the path of the motorcyclist who was starting to overtake the queue at the time. Now, the dash cam footage caught the moment that the bike began the turn, and the rider had very little time to react, and unfortunately he suffered some serious injuries: broken legs, arms, hands, shoulder blades, spinal injuries, multiple dislocations, and damaged Achilles tendon. And he's also suffered mental trauma from the collision too. He's dealing with ongoing anxiety images. So what happened in court? Well, Hutchinson pleaded guilty to causing serious injury by careless driving, and he got a 15-month ban. He was ordered to complete 180 hours of unpaid work, and he was fined £199. Police noted that the manoeuvre was not only unsafe, but they claimed it was unnecessary and an attempt to save maybe a minute or two of queuing in traffic. So police, they highlighted what they called a broader lesson from this. A moment of carelessness can have life-changing consequences, and of course they reminded drivers that they need to check that their maneuvers are safe, and to look out for vulnerable road users like motorcyclists and cyclists. So the problem is that, you know, in incidents like this, the driver is held responsible. Drivers have been told to look out for bikes, to think bike for decades, 5 decades now, but collisions like this still happen. So why is it? Let's have a look at the accident scene. Let me just bring that up again. I'll give you the zoom in picture. You can see the collision there happening just sort of top right of center there. The car's in the middle of the maneuver and the rider is just about to be taken out. So why do crashes like this happen? Well, the first answer is that as motorcyclists, we tend to think all the driver has to do is look in the mirror and they'll see us. But in fact, it's not nearly as easy as that appears. If there's another vehicle behind us, then the chances of seeing anything in the interior mirror are virtually non-existent. If the vehicle behind us happens to be sitting right of center behind us, then the chances are we won't see anything in the driver's mirror either. And once a vehicle begins to turn even slightly, then those mirrors won't be pointing in the right direction anyway. So the driver can potentially check the mirrors, start the turn, and suddenly discover the motorcycle is right behind them. Even when they do see the bike, it's easy to misjudge speed and distance. So what's the advice to riders? Well, typically it's to use lights in the day time. It's a pretty dull day, as you can see from this picture. It looks wet, looks like a miserable day. But as you can tell from the collision, lights are passive protection. They rely on the driver seeing them. The rider had the lights on, and clearly the driver didn't see the bike. So, turn this on its head. Let's not say the driver isn't culpable for the crash, but let's try to remember that we can make a difference. This doesn't have to happen. These crashes are what I call two-to-tangle collisions. One sets it up, the other, the rider, has to ride into it. And human error is pretty much inevitable. Somebody sooner or later will make this kind of mistake. So what can we do to avoid the problem? Well, the first thing possibly that the rider could have done is just waited a second or two. If you look to the rider's right, there's a car that's passing going in the opposite direction. Now that car's moved right over to the far edge of the road to make as much space as possible, but the rider is trying to squeeze past the car they're about to overtake alongside centre lines. If that car had been allowed to go past, as I said, it would have been a second or two. The rider could have moved right into the opposite lane. They would have been much further away from the oncoming vehicle, and they would have given that driver a better chance of seeing them. And even when the driver started to turn, they would have had much more time to deal with the emergency. Maybe with that time, they could have hit the horn and stopped the car dead in its tracks. So we need to be aware that these kind of incidents can happen. Now, if there is a queue, why is the rider filtering past the queuing or the developing queue? Why is he overtaking in the first place? Because he doesn't want to be stuck in that queue either. The driver, the police said, didn't want to take an extra couple of minutes to complete his journey, but neither did the motorcyclist. So both drivers were trying to complete, trying to shave some time off the journey. The only difference is that the car driver couldn't filter, hence the U-turn. So it's not beyond our imagination, in my opinion, to think that if I want to save some time by filtering down the outside of this developing queue, overtaking the slower moving traffic, then somebody in that queue might not want to sit in it either. So expect that to happen. What else can we do? Well, maybe he could have braked out of trouble. Maybe he could have swerved out of trouble. I'll leave you to think about that if you can take a look at the video. But the takeaway from this is pretty obvious, I think. Really, no matter how experienced we are, we need to think ahead. We need to anticipate how other drivers will envisage the situation that is developing in front of them and what they are going to do about it, not just what we want to do about it. So yeah, split-second decisions like this by a U-turning driver put the rider at risk, but it doesn't mean that we cannot use our own wits to try to keep us out of trouble. So rather than simply trying to do what the highway code says, which is to use high-vis clothing and ride visibly to other road users, ride smart. Assume somebody might make a mistake, and then have a plan in your head to deal with it when it happens. So, I know that some people will think this is blaming the motorcyclists after the fact. In fact, one of the comments on the Facebook page, which I'm just about to put the link up, which has got the video in it, said exactly that, anybody saying the motorcyclist was at fault is blaming the motorcyclist, and it was entirely the driver's fault. Well, fault, yes, it was the driver's fault, but doesn't stop the motorcyclist, doesn't stop any of us from using our wits to avoid getting into somebody else's crash, because we don't have to join in. Two to tangle, we can stay out of trouble if we don't want to get into that mess. Right, okay, so that is pretty much it for today's show. It's time to wrap up, but before I do go, if you did find the in-depth section of this show useful, why not think about joining up on my 8-week e-course? The course consists of 8 modules. They're delivered weekly, though the schedule can slip as and when you need more time. And if you want to work at your own pace, each weekly module involves a mix of theory, videos, carefully designed practical exercises for you to try out in your own time. So multimedia. Plenty of interaction. You can ask questions. You feedback to me via a chat system, your thoughts on the projects. You can upload photos. You can even send me videos from your own bike if you want to. We'll also have a couple of online webinar style meetings over the course time scale. Now, I know a course won't be to everybody's taste for sure, but if you are open-minded about how you can learn and you like your thinking to be challenged, then you will, I think, be surprised at just how effective the Survival Skills 8-week e-course can be. The current price, I'm still holding it at £79. That's a tenner a week. That's less than you pay for breakfast on your Sunday morning ride out. So if you want to go, give it a go, you can sign up via this QR code. That's it for today. Thanks to everybody who has looked in either live or on catch up. You've been watching me, Kevin Williams of Survival Skills Rider Training. This has been ELEVENSES. Make a date to join me for the next roundup of news, views and better biking tips on Sunday. And if you're out there enjoying a ride today on your bike, make sure you stay shiny side up, and then I will see you